OC World is made possible by the generous contributions of Marisla Foundation, Keith and Judy Swain Family Foundation, Wells Fargo Bank, the University of California, Irvine, Orange County Community Foundation, Santiago Canyon College, Farmers and Merchants Bank, and viewers like you. Thank you.
Nadia Davis, daughter of respected Orange County civil rights attorney Wally Davis, became a prominent lawyer and public figure in her own right. She was a rising star in California politics, with a unique ability to relate to women and minorities. Nadia became the youngest elected member to the Santa Ana School Board in history. As a lawyer, she won wide acclaim in successfully leading the effort to obtain the freedom of a young man who had been wrongfully convicted. In 1999, shortly after the untimely death of her father, Nadia suffered a near-death experience in a horrific car accident that left her with broken bones and enduring physical pain. 5 years later, she married one of the most powerful lawmakers in the state, Attorney General Bill Lockyer. Eventually, the couple moved to Northern California, where she led the Alameda County Family Justice Center. During this time, she reached out for help with depression and chronic pain, and in this process encountered a man who set out to expose her personal challenges. Soon after, she ran and won her first election for the Alameda Board of Supervisors. And then, a newspaper scandal rocked Nadia's once idyllic world. In 2012, she resigned her post as board supervisor in Alameda County amidst a controversy where she claimed she had been stalked, threatened, and finally assaulted by this individual. She also had been undergoing treatment for substance use disorder. The rise and fall of Nadia Davis-Lockyer represents one of the most tumultuous yet inspiring stories in California political history. It has taken her years to reach a place of recovery and redemption. In her book, Home is Within You, she relates her saga of pain, trauma, addiction, and fear as she went through an extreme public shaming. She reveals how the cycle of trauma can play out in intimate family and public relationships. Today, Nadia Davis is sharing her story in the hope of helping other people who may be wrestling with similar traumas and shame.
So that was a lot to digest, that material and that backstory. I wanted to start and ask you to talk to me a little bit about your father and your relationship to your father.
My father has been with me ever since he passed, and it really is the bridge. He is his spirit, and connecting with his soul is the bridge to the home within. And so when I'm meditating, when I'm sitting down and I'm trying to switch my brain from its literal thinking, which we can't stop, I remember the last time I saw him, which is an embrace in the back of their house that was in the Yorba Linda Hills. It's a hand on the back of my head and lying my head on his chest, and this unspoken understanding, like, you're on your way, you're safe. My Poogie's home, that was my nickname. And so the relationship with my father has been the one ongoing, sustaining thing. Ever since I was a little girl, I identified with his personality, his interests, and what he loved, which was helping people from a very young age on.
You referred to yourself growing up as the dirty little brown girl. And I'm wondering, what Where did that come from?
It actually came when I was writing. It wasn't a literal thought. It was during the time when I was doing a lot of trauma work, and was a concept and a belief, a core belief, instilled in me in a subtle way in how our minds work, that was my identity. As I'm dirty because I was touched inappropriately. I'm dirty because I have a birthmark here that's covered with makeup, but it's the kids in the school would say, wash your face, you don't need a uniform, you're already brown. I didn't need my brownie uniform. And at the same time, that combined with some molestation that was happening in a doctor's office, and it's the way our minds work, I now know. It was this subtle belief of what I was. So in writing the book and all those parts, it was that had been my identity in the way that our ego and our mind works.
One of the things in researching your story and your backstory, and I really didn't know much about it, to be honest. I wasn't either paying attention back then or I wasn't, following politics. But one of the things I noticed kind of doing the review is there's this, I don't know the right word for this, Nadia, but there's this duality of your personality in some respects, right? There's the person who went to college and got the degree and went on to help others, and there's that story that you're more than willing to share now. But then there was the other side of the personality that took you on a different direction and a different path. I'm wondering if you can explain in sort of your research in yourself how that duality kind of managed to surface.
I love that you brought that up, because I feel that the near-death experience coupled with the public life magnified the human existence, and that we live in a duality. If we're souls in a physical body, having a near-death experience and experiencing an ambiance of souls, and the only truth that matters, where time isn't linear, versus being in the public eye and have to literally think and prepare about what I'm presenting, and then when there was judgment, it magnified all the shame-based messages in my head. So that duality I now embrace. I can be a spirit in a body with a mind. That's where the home is. That's where the home within is. It's that place where I can embrace being both.
Shame is an interesting concept. I'd like for you to describe shame in your specific circumstances and sort of the power or influence of the public shaming that you went through, because I can imagine my own shame and my own experiences and my own downfalls and all of that, but to imagine that in a public forum seems like it's just completely devastating, and I'm sure it was, and I'm wondering if you describe the devastation you went through during that period of time.
It brought me to suicidality without having that connection to my Father's Spirit, to a place that is the only truth that matters, that we're infinite beings, that I came like you came from an unchangeable being, a whole, perfect, complete. I didn't have that connection then. And so today, reflecting back, I now know the public shaming, it magnified what was happening within me. And so it made that spiritual journey, it added like 1,000 layers, because everything was focused on the outside. I couldn't get, I couldn't get any escape. We try to have that solace within ourselves, but when I walked out the door, everything was right there on the front page. And it was just this constant cycle, this back and forth, very much the cause of several of my relapses, as I would try with all the earnestness to do everything that was required, to clean up the wreckage, and it always seemed that I couldn't recreate my life.
Yeah, you know, I don't know how to ask this question, but from early on, you talked about the molestation early on in your life.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about the trauma that you experienced in college, right? You talked about the car accident. In your book, you talk about sort of the drug issues that surfaced, as well as the scandal that broke, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in my head, I'm asking myself, why did all this befall you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, not that you contributed, that's not what I'm suggesting, right? But I'm wondering, as you look back on it, why do you suppose all this tragedy and trauma came knocking on your doorstep?
Thank you for your comment and for asking the question. I now know that I'm not to blame for the abuse, but I also know it came from the really beautiful part of little Nadia. That is, I care. That the whole time I was choosing love and not judgment, not fear, not the mind when I would interact and meet someone. But I needed that protective side. I needed what they call the negative mind in Kundalini Yoga that was just non-existent, because I felt that my worth, my ability to be loved, was based on that self-sacrifice, that extreme, I have to save others. That was how I found an identity. And so I believe that I attracted the narcissistic personality disorder type, some have been called sociopathic, we can have all the labels that we want, but it's human behavior to be attracted to one that has all the qualities, you know, that are that were the opposite of me, for somebody to be attracted to my authenticity, my warmth, my total non-judgmental ways. But the sad reality is, it was because that was how I was finding my worth. I felt I had to sacrifice myself. Does that make sense?
It makes good sense. It really does. And so my question is, my follow-up question to that is, these are endearing qualities. These are the qualities that one would hope each of us has in our life, right? That we're warm and we're engaging and we want to give back and we want to help, we want to embrace, we want to do the right thing. And people apparently took a lot of advantage of that in you. I'm wondering, coming out of this, if you still have those qualities, do you still embrace those qualities? Have you sort of, put those aside?
My sponsor has me working vehemently on knowing my limitations, because yes, I'm very much still the same. And I need to know, I'm learning through the home within that self-care and that self-compassion and that self-love, that acceptance is needed for me to be of any help to anybody. And so that's where, if I have a safe, calm place within myself, and I know I'm keeping myself calm, healthy, and not switching to a self-sacrificing way of being loved, I know I'm okay. I know my love and what I give, and just the aura as a mother, it's dramatically different. Dramatically, as a friend, as a partner, as a mother, with the self-care and compassion. I can't get that from anybody else, and I know that. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Yeah. So this is a tough question to ask. Yeah. During the height of the scandal and going through all that you went through in the public's eye, I'm wondering, as a mother, how you view that effect on your children.
I think it was a terrible thing that they had to experience, particularly Diego, who is 20 now. personally, we had very little ability to protect our privacy, which affected him. The only thing that I could offer throughout the journey of recovery, which I always am thankful that I did, it was owning up myself to how I responded to the media, to the public judgment, so that he knew he had a safe place about however he was going to respond.
The title of your book is Home is Within You.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering two things. Why that title?
Mm-hmm.
Was the process of writing both cathartic for you, and did it help you deal with issues that have yielded?
Oh, absolutely. It was to my children, and it was also starting with writing my father's story that I felt, and Arthur Carmona's story, that I felt were never, ever fully told, nor their voices. And it was their spirits that came to me in the darkest hour, and all of that is in the book. And so it was a spiritual kind of calling in the most personal way. And so when I started writing, it allowed me to intertwine their spiritual messages to me, the near-death experience, with all the learnings that I gained in 12-step recovery and trauma therapy, and then just daily now in life. And so, yes, writing the book, it brought that time isn't linear concept in. And if you read the book, you'll see I'm talking about like a certain facts at a certain time, but then I would write a letter to my son today, reflecting back, because I would have that realization. And so that's really the spirit of the book.
When in this process did you realize you have the power to change and that you could defeat the shame that you experienced? Is that still an ongoing process?
It's easier today, but there was a moment where I had like over 2 years sobriety, and I did not understand. It's similar to the last, I've had like a dozen years sobriety from drugs, or 12 years. And the alcohol relapses were always in sparses after a couple years of sobriety. And each one brought up another layer of like a core wound. And so when I had a relapse and was not quite at the point of surrendering my self-will and all the ways that I was trying to fix everything, this is like 5-6 years ago, I was at Linwood Women's Facility, and I had done all this work, and I got on my knees and I begged, like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And I tried so hard, and that was when my father's spirit and Arthur's spirit came in a non-literal way, in a sense, and like a knowing. And it was then where, that's the point. I don't need to do anything. It was really, honestly, at that point where it was like this total relief. It was, little Nadia, like I can surrender. I am waiting for the guidance from my soul. After that is a higher power. And I felt like I had all those layers where I finally was able to go, all this literal solution finding, seeking is not going to work. That was when I was able to put my mind in place.
It's interesting that you're publishing a book that puts you back into the public eye in some respects.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, not the book, but the being back in the public eye helps you down the road of redemption.
Again, I started writing to my sons, and it wasn't as though I was, I'm going to write a book and speak my truth. I knew I wanted to speak my father's story. I knew I wanted to speak Arthur Carmona's truth and his experience and the awful things that he went through. And the more that I was writing, the more I realized, again, the bigger purpose of why there was the near-death experience, of why I had the public shaming. It was so other people could feel safe, that if this woman can speak so openly, so brutally honestly about these falls and how it transitioned into this soul finding, this beautiful space of a home, that other people can. And so it's already out there. It's already out there. But let me tell you where, if you do it yourself, whether in a 12-step meeting, whether with your spouse, whether with whoever, I have a problem, I need help, I get depressed, I have pain, physical pain, whatever it might be, that thing in us that makes us hide and isolate, that shame, we can get past that and have the human connection and healing that we need. So here's how. Here's the book.
Do you still see yourself as vulnerable?
Of course. I think the human condition makes us vulnerable, but I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to be vulnerable anymore. I'm not afraid. I trust myself.
Do you think that you will ever arrive at a place of sobriety and peace?
Yes, I am there.
When I say at a place of sobriety and peace, that means you feel pretty confident now in your skill set that...
Yes, I know why that last happened. It was a final layer of needing to protect myself, ironically. I can offer things to the world. I can offer love and understanding and compassion to a potential partner. But I need to know that they have the ability to do that within themselves. And that last layer was by far the greatest lesson for the little girl in me, by far. I needed to be able to know how to better protect myself.
Any plans in the future to do anything more in the public eye?
Just be me. Be me wherever that will lead. There's a lot of different things that are coming my way. That I'm really trying to soak it all in and really just soak in all the gratitude to be where I'm at today and stay aware. And so we'll see.
Do you feel hopeful?
Yes, very much, very much. I think that there is a love now with myself and my children, and a compassionate way of working with my ex-husband, that now I'm in the best place to be a partner if that is in the future. So
my understanding is that your book is now in the women's prison system.
in men and women.
Men and women prison systems. Can you tell me a little bit about that process and how you feel about that?
It was very, very cool. In the very, very first sales report meeting with the publisher, that they showed that many prison facilities had ordered the book. And it was very surprising to them. Many prison facility libraries, as well as libraries had, which is pretty surreal because it's permanently there. And so I felt overjoyed, and I felt overjoyed. I wanted to send books with the page marked, and the experience I explained to you where I just fell on my knees when I was at Linwood Women's Facility, luckily only for 10 days, but especially parents. I felt, okay, this is the purpose. This is the purpose of the book, in that if there's anybody in there that is just buried buried in, whether it's resentment, whether it's their own shame of what they did that caused them to be there, and especially what they're putting their children through in that separation. This is a way to get out of that, to go into listen to their little girl or boy and listen to those core wounds while they're there, to use it as an opportunity to heal so that their own little girl and boy are in a better place so they can better parent when they get out. So I did some research online and found, every prison facility has a library. It's part of a state library system. Did a whole bunch of little Nadia research in the way I am, and found that there's a prison literature project and a Books to Prisoners program, and it's national. And so I donated boxes of books, because another cool thing is they partner, so I'm donating boxes of books. They partner with local bookstores, so it's supporting indie bookstores. And so through my website, there is a link where people can go and donate a copy of the book, support a local bookstore, and the Books to Prisoners program or prison literature program in California, they are the nonprofit that collaborates with the facilities and gets it into the hands of the prisoners.
What's the one takeaway you hope readers will have from reading your book?
That we all deserve a safe place to share, cry, and be vulnerable. And if you can't find that place outside you, there is a place within that, so importantly, what is so unrecognized is how our minds separate us from our soul and from each other, and how shame and shaming of human struggle is the biggest weapon doing that. And I feel like the world is existing in this survival mode, so separated from our own souls and each other. And that's the home. It's different from a relationship with a higher power or universe or God. It's connection with your own soul. And that is what the home is within. That is what it is.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.